Welcome, folks, to the latest edition of the Coaches Connect call. I'm Coach Jeremy. We got a bunch of coaches here ready to dig in, and Coach Kim has a question that she wants to ask related to business. All you, Coach Kim.
Hi, that name sounded nice. Um, so I am getting like my social media up again. I like just background on me. I haven't had social media in a really long time. I like took a mental detox from it. So this is like all new for me, getting it back up and kind of going from there, starting the coaching business. This would be like something on the side that I would do on top of my full-time healthcare job that I have. And I guess I just have a question for people, how they kind of strategize their business on social media. Do they personally put like the thing I was thinking of doing is putting like my name and then I bought a domain for a business and then putting the link there. And I was just curious, I was seeing how other people on social media do it. They usually have like a link it's kind of like a contact form so the person can contact them or they say DM them. And I was just curious what other people do with their strategy on social media. Do they just put their website and say DM them, or is it like a quick link to their website, or just kind of seeing the different strategies out there so I can kind of take an idea.
Cool. So in that regard, uh, there's probably a few different elements that we're looking for, but coaches, I'd love to hear if you already have that kind of in place in your social accounts, how do you handle it? And just to summarize, Kim, it sounds like you have what platform are you using? Can we ask?
Yeah, so Instagram.
Okay, so you have an Instagram account with your kind of like your little bio section there, as well as you're creating a website that has more features, and you're going to use that as kind of like directing to that website.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Cool. Coaches, how do you handle this? How do you set up your social accounts to direct to your websites or to encourage people to engage with you? That's fair. Maybe if you haven't already kind of crossed this bridge, what it looks like for a lot of folks, and I would encourage you to find other coaches who you see their presence online. You're like, okay, what is this person doing? Do I generally like their approach? And then how can I replicate some of those things? Uh, One would be so for Instagram accounts, you will have this little bio section where you can insert links. Uh, Many folks will use that as an opportunity to insert something called like a link tree link. Link tree is a feature where you can have kind of a landing page, and then it links out to other social media accounts, to your website, to a scheduling page, uh, to a sales page, anything you want to have there. So you'll see Linktree is like a really common one, and I would encourage folks to take a look at that, especially if you have various platforms that you post things on. So if you have like a YouTube channel, Instagram, website, all of those things, and you want to be able to have them more interconnected and have people find you in various places, that's one thing that you can do. Uh, for my personal use, I have my Instagram page, and then I use the Pro Coach sales page as my link. So it just says like a little blurb about me, and then I share that link there. So anyone who comes onto my profile can go to my Pro Coach sales page, and then that's where it will prompt them to send me an email or to reach out. Additionally, as a part of your strategy, Kim, you can also, anytime you post a piece of content, so let's say, and we're actually going to talk about this a little bit more when we go into content marketing in Unit 3. So if you read ahead here, you'll see when we talk about engagement and using kind of a call to action. Not everything that you post is going to have a call to action to it. Some of it could just be like, hey, here's a free giveaway, here's a recipe, here's a tip that I find useful. Then, as your funnel narrows and you get more specific in your give and more specific in your ask, you can say, hey, send me a DM if this is important to you. Put a emoji in the chat box if this resonates with you, or DM me if you want to know more about this. So the ask is getting more specific there. And one of those things that you can ask is if this is resonates with you, or if coaching is something you want to discuss, click my link in bio. So you've probably seen link in bio a billion times on any of the social channels that you're working with. That is what it's referring to. So you can certainly put your website there as your link in bio. You can use Linktree. A newer feature that probably has gained a little bit more prominence, especially on larger accounts in the last year or so, is using a tool like ManyChat, which is a an add-on that you can use. You manage it separately from your social accounts, but instead of having the barrier of having clients or potential clients, prospects, having to exit that piece of content, find your bio, click on the link, and then do things there, you can have something that says in your piece of content, use a tag word. You'll see this on PN's account a whole bunch. So if you click on any of our recent Instagram reels or any of the posts that we have, very often there's a call to action at the end that says, hey, if this resonates with you, enter keyword here. So if the keyword is protein, if they put protein anywhere in their comment, it will send them a DM to their account. And it will normally DM them like a link to a research article, a DM to a blog post that we wrote, a DM to sign up for a specific product. That is another way that you can get people to engage with you. Typically works well if you have a specific give or you have a specific product that you're looking to sell. So in that funnel, and we'll talk a little bit more about sales funnels next week, it comes after a sequence of give, 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 and then ask for the thing. Uh, Dana, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I mean, I guess just to add, I mean, I'm not really at that point yet either, but I do have, I started a new account for my health coaching thing, and so I only have like 10 followers or whatever.
Mhm.
So I follow, I mean, I also haven't told many people about it, so that's also, I've just been on there like trying to practice, like what I'm even gonna post, but I did create like a PDF, and created a landing page basically, through Flowdesk, just so like if people go there, it's a PDF for like a better, guide to eating or whatever.
Mhm.
And so that's what I've done, I guess. But yeah, I guess to to piggyback off that, like, I guess I'm having a hard time, maybe because I only have the 10 followers, but like knowing how important a role it plays, in terms of yeah, in terms of everything. I mean, how important of a role is social media? I have a hard time. It's such a love-hate thing. And,
Mhm.
I don't like to be on there and scroll, so I end up just not going on there. But then my consistency sort of, I mean, is not there because then I don't go on.
Gotcha. I mean, so we'll talk about this in a second, or we can come back to this conversation specifically how important is social media, and the question or the answer is kind of like, I don't know, how important do you want it to be in your business? But we can talk about how to kind of minimize some of the downsides and maximize your consistency and involvement there so that it has a decent return on investment for you without feeling like an endless time sink. Because for a lot of folks, it can often feel like an endless time sink that
Yeah,
we throw a bunch of time and effort into and don't see a large return. So we'll talk
right.
about what does that return look like and how do we minimize downside in a second. Uh, Kim, just coming back to you in regards to kind of options to move forward to integrate your Instagram presence or to utilize your Instagram presence to kind of drive traffic towards your website. Does that give you an idea of how you can, one, kind of place the link in your bio and then encourage people to check out your link in bio if they're interested and drive some more traffic that way?
Yeah, I think what right now I'm just like feeling analysis paralysis. Like for the last week, I was like mulling over, do I need a DBA? Do I need a LLC? What should I start first? So I'm just taking a ton of notes and to-dos. And then
Mm-hmm.
when I talked to one of my friends, she's kind of in branding and marketing, and she's like, forget all that, just get the IG going, get the word of mouth going. And that's basically what you guys have been saying too, is like start like
Yep.
putting reps in, right? And but then I'm like, oh, I haven't had social media in like 10 years. Um, And I'm trying to learn that again. And like, I'm very like a person that likes to live in the present. So all this is a little overwhelming for me. So I guess I was just kind of seeing what other people were doing and then also trying to figure out what's the very first thing I need to focus on. And so I kind of figured just really get on the IG. And then I started getting
Mhm.
like thinking about like, oh, the link. What link do I put? And maybe I need my website built up. So I just feel like I have a lot of to-dos on my plate. That's just where I'm at.
Gotcha. And also, I know that you sent a request into for support for some of those questions regarding CBK stuff. Just
Yeah.
know that those questions are in my inbox. I've actually shared some of them with Coach Tony, who's helping me with some of the responses and just making sure that we're both on the same page. So I'm actually going to post your questions in full in our CBK group so that everyone can see the responses there. So
Awesome.
one, thank you for sending those questions. Two, we just want to make sure that I want to make sure at least that I'm getting multiple sources of feedback here. So you're not just getting my experience, but you're getting Coach Tony as well. And then we'll share that with the collective community. I'm probably going to actually do that today after this call.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. And in regards to kind of the social media of it all and the a million options that you have, as your marketing friend mentioned to you, let if you zoom out a little bit and look at like why do I actually want social media? You want a social media presence so that people can find you and you can begin to work with them. If you can do all of that, like people can find you and you can begin to work with them without social media, you don't really need it then. Uh, but the question becomes, how else are you going to get people to find you? And there are many different answers. Like your reach will likely be more community based, but if you have strong social communities that you're a part of, or you have communities that you've identified as being related to the work you do or the interests that you have, you can branch out in those communities. So if you're a rock climber and you go, hey, local gym that I go to all the time, I would love to share my nutrition information with climbers. Maybe there's something we can collaborate on. Hey, local knitting group that I'm a part of, I would love to share a little bit of my information on how rest and recovery might be useful for knitters so that they don't get overuse injuries. Anything that you could think of where people may have relationships or you may have relationships that already exist. How can I leverage those relationships in a way that is mutually beneficial? How can I give something to people that they would find useful and they'd want to connect with me and then start in that place? So this kind of also dovetails into Dana's comment a little bit in that you don't need to have a social media presence, but you do need to let people know that you do the thing in order for them to work with you.
Yeah, that makes
So
sense.
hopefully you've put a little bit more thought into like, if I don't want to be in social media all day, well, how can I reach out to other folks?
Yeah. Okay. And then through the CBK course, are we going through Pro Coach? I think we are, but
Yep.
just
So that's in, we'll do that in week 5. We'll do a quick pro coach demo. I would encourage folks, if you're done the certification, uh, that by week 3 or 4, you can go through it yourself so you can come with adequate questions. I'll also share a video demo that I've done previously, probably in week 4 or 5 in case anyone is unable to attend. Uh, but we'll do the full demonstration as well. It probably works better if you've had an opportunity to kind of log in, see what the process is like, and then you come with specific questions that I can answer for you, as opposed to going through kind of the very basic stuff. But we'll talk all about that in CBK land. So for folks who are not in CBK, Coaching Business Kickstarter program, don't worry about this stuff. This does not apply to you unless you're interested in it. And then message people at PN and tell them you want another course offered sometime in the fall. Uh, Dana, to just continue kind of the discussion that you were having there, if you want to minimize kind of your time on social but maximize the impact, a person that I would encourage you to follow, and I'll also be sharing some of her content, not in this call today, but later again for our CBK folks. Apologize, this is the last time I'm going to mention CBK. Uh, is Dr. Kara Norden. She actually, I believe, is one of the writers for the course and has really great thoughts regarding creating connection, business development, social media strategy, all of those things. Uh, One of the things that she had mentioned was regarding like scheduling out content well in advance. So if you take some time and think about, I think the easiest way to do this is think of 3 to 5 topics that you'd want to cover. What are the things that come up in conversations when folks ask you about your coaching business or about things related to your coaching business? So for me, that's often regarding meal prep, regarding time and scheduling exercise, uh, eating on weekends and evenings, anxiety related to food, and then some supplementation questions. So the 5 topics that I can speak about all day long, and people keep seeking me out to answer those questions as kind of one-off questions. From there, I would then take each one of those topics and think about, okay, what are the subtopics that people ask me about? In terms of supplementation, it's like often fish oil, creatine, protein powder, magnesium, and then anything else that comes up. So each one of those 5 topics, I can probably spin off another 3 to 5 subtopics for them. From there, I can now write specific points for each of those subtopics, and it might be 1 to 2 posts per, depending on how information dense they are. And then now I've gotten about 3 to 4 weeks of content that I can deliver daily or almost daily, depending on how I want to spread it out. If you have all those things kind of plotted out from there, uh, I can then post those or use a scheduling app to kind of upload them all and then post them later on. Something like a Hootsuite, which is normally used by like larger companies, but many programs offer similar advantageous kind of features, which typically are free for like single use entrepreneurs. So you can find something similar to that. And then that way, you don't have to worry about being on all the time. You can post things, you can set it and forget it, and come back and just answer comments and engage like on a weekly basis without devoting hours per day to getting stuck in scrolling.
Mm.
So
Yeah, I've
that's like
I've
a huge,
definitely
big concept to share, but hopefully
yeah.
that gives you an idea of like, I don't have to be stuck in this current cycle.
Yeah, I mean, I guess with not with just getting started, I don't know what people are asking me about really. I just know what I'm interested in. So those
Mhm.
are some, I mean, and I know who she is, that I went to that social media um or I watched the social
Kind of
media
the live
play that
masterclass that we shared a couple
yeah,
weeks ago.
it was awesome. I mean, she definitely like inspired me to be like, okay, I'm posting every day, and I was posting every day, and then I just burned out. I was just like, oh, I don't know. It just feels really sustainable. I don't know. I mean, she was also just saying you can do it badly, just post like your yogurt or whatever it is, and so I was doing that. Um, but yeah, I mean, I again, just with having so little feedback, because I just don't have a strong following, it feels very much just like treading through mud of like, okay, you know, yeah, it feels a little just calling out into the abyss, I guess. But what was I gonna say? There was something else. I forget. I forget.
So as you're kind of thinking on that, another thing that I want to offer you here, and I've mentioned this in the call before, in regards to social media return on investment, a lot of folks will try kind of narrow that down to I post on social media to specifically get clients. That's the only reason I post. And if I'm not successful with that, then it is not a useful, like, it's not useful in regards to my business development or my time, which is completely fair. Like, if that's the way that you want to kind of set the goalpost, you can do that. I would encourage you, just like we do with other coaching, to set wider goalposts.
Mm.
Why do people go to the gym? It's like, well, to get a 315-pound bench press. If I don't do that, then all my time in the gym is wasted. It's like, maybe, but maybe your time in the gym is also for stress management. Maybe there's a social component to it. Maybe there's value in learning new skills. So if we apply that kind of similar framework to posting on social media, why do I post on social media? My 315-pound bench press maybe get clients or get 10 clients or whatever it could be, but it could also be I post on social media because it helps me to clarify my own thought process. I post on social media because it helps me to develop my marketing skills. I post on
Mhm.
social media because it helps me generate a new skill set that I'm working towards. If you widen that goalpost, then it is not simply that one really narrow point that you can define as being useful. It then becomes a little bit of a wider scale project, and you see more value in doing the thing, and you don't feel like, oh, it's not generating the thing I want, so therefore I stop.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what she talked about. I like that too. And like I said, I was, inspired by it for a minute and then was like, and mm, yeah, I just sort of lost because I think the downside was too great, which was like spending more time. And I remember what I was going to say, which is just about like Hootsuite and those kind of things. I mean, I've heard in various places that when you use those things, the actual engagement and stuff that Instagram won't push those if there's a third party that it really likes you when you actually just go on Instagram and post directly, and if you post through a third party, it won't it doesn't push your material through.
Which is possible. And I mean, also, I know Instagram has, if you have the business version, like if your platform or your profile is a business profile,
Hmm.
I know you can schedule posts on that. I don't know if you can schedule posts for personal accounts. I haven't
Hmm.
tried, but if you set it as like a professional account, for business, then you can schedule posts.
Okay. Okay.
Mm.
Thanks.
So you might want to just toggle that switch to make sure that you can do so.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh,
Anna.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, Dana, I think I'm sure you have tons of things that people ask you about. You might not know exactly what your clients um, are looking for at this point, but one of the things that I've just kind of always been a person that people come to with questions. And so a lot of the material I'll use is just answers people have asked me about bladder health or whatever it is. I had conquered some things there. And so I'll just grab some of that and put it out. And especially since it's a voice from you to your friends, and I think that'll really speak to your audience and how much you really want to help.
Thank
Your
you.
sincerity. Yeah, that's what word I was looking for. You're welcome.
Thank you, Anna. Much appreciated. Uh, Kim, you have your hand up.
yeah, I was gonna ask, I did jump ahead just a little bit in unit 3 for CBK, with the social
Mhm.
media. There's a download folder for suggested content. Is that like considered something we can actually use, or I just didn't want to like copy, or if it would be an
No, that's
issue.
all yours.
Oh,
Feel
okay.
free to post it as is. My
Mm,
suggestion would be with this content and any other content that you farm from online, where it's like, hey, I really like the message or I like the visual that this sends. Uh, Always kind of add your own spin to it, add your own voice. As Anna was saying just now, uh, much of the content that we're sharing like, is readily available with a quick Google search, but very little of it has your own unique voice added to it. And that is the bridge that gets people who are within your community and who already know and like you to engage with that content. It's like your friends and family probably know they need to eat more fruits and vegetables. But when you share it in a way that is relevant to kind of them and it seems like it's coming from you, it becomes more accessible. So the content that is available through that course, that whole social media pack, you can share it, just copy paste and put it in. I would encourage you to add some of your own context to it so that it speaks more to your coaching philosophy and who you are as a coach. But yeah, that is something that you can certainly uh, use to help share your message.
okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. But I'm glad to see that you're jumping ahead and doing all the things. That's great. Anna, do you have your hand up?
Yeah.
Yep.
I wanted to piggyback on something you just said. I really didn't think that what I was offering was of that great a value because I was gathering information from different websites and speaking to topics I'm really interested in. And I had a doctor on the line on my call. I had, a couple of different professionals, and they all just were wowed. They said, "Oh, you've done so much work to get this together." And all I did was really take the main points, put them in a logical order that could be sequenced and digestible. And I built a keynote presentation, or whatever it's called on PCs. And they just were so impressed. It meant a lot to them, and they needed those bullet points. They need somebody else to go out and grab the information and break it down into manageable bites.
Yeah, I mean, what you're explaining essentially is at the heart of any like course or program development.
Mhm.
These are things where it's like the information is typically accessible unless you're a primary researcher and you're doing that research and then making the research available, which very few of us here will be. But if you are someone who is consuming information, putting it into a logical sequence and making it more accessible for other folks to engage with, that is at the heart of kind of like program and course development. Uh, if you add some ways for people to practice developing those skills, then it becomes more of a coaching based program, especially if you actively engage with the people and you're able to give them active guidance, then that thing becomes incredibly valuable. It goes from being a free presentation to an ebook which you sell for a few dollars to a program that people enroll in and they go through multiple modules to being an actual coaching program where they spend hundreds, if not thousands of dollars to work with you, the course developer, to integrate that information and those skills in their lives. So, uh, lots of ways that we can take this thing. And if it feels like large and overwhelming right now, just scale it back to the point where it feels accessible to you right now, which may be presentation or even easier, a single Instagram post or a series of posts. Uh, Kim, I know this all kind of spiraled from your initial question there. Hopefully that gives you some insight into where you can take kind of your social media approach and how you can use those conversations that you're generating to generate more connection with the people who have found you.
Yeah, I think at this point I just need to jump in and kind of see what works. I tend to overthink things, so I am just trying not to like talk myself out of it.
Let it be messy for right now. Doing the
Yeah,
thing is more
that's
important
really
than doing the
hard.
thing perfectly.
Yeah, exactly. I did have just a quick question on elevator pitch to like friends for through word of mouth. What do people kind of
Yeah,
typically say?
let's pause there for 1 second. Uh, Actually, while we do pause for 1 second, if folks here have an elevator pitch or something you've been kind of rolling around in your brain, feel free to pop it in the chat box. I just want to come to Anastasia real quick to see if there's anything else that they wanted to add to the current conversation.
Hey everyone. No, I actually have another question about the session with the client. So I didn't know, should I wait until you ask the next question or should I raise my hand? I'm sorry.
Well, you got your hand up, so you're in the queue. Let's go with Kim's question
Sure, sure.
regarding elevator pitches. I know actually you're in CBK as well, I believe. So maybe you've had
Yes,
an
I am.
opportunity to practice from Unit 1 in week 1. But let's take 30 seconds and just pop them into the chat box. I'm curious to
Mhm.
see what people come up with. Uh, and then we'll talk about some of the things that influence a good elevator pitch uh, and see where people land on that. So I'll share mine as well, my ever evolving one. Cool. I'll let people continue to think it over and write some things in the chat box as they are able to. But typically, the formula that we share for elevator pitch, the very basic formula sounds like I help X person do X thing so that they can achieve X outcome. So you can see that if you kind of like plug in that formula and read through some of the uh, elevator pitches shared here, it's like most people will follow kind of a similar formula there. Typically, the most common advice is that you should be quite specific with who X person is, what do they age, gender, profession, as many of those kind of qualifiers as you can put in, typically sounds better. Uh, and then the specific thing that you provide, again, getting more specific tends to be better there, uh, as well as what is the outcome or the happy ending that you're trying to provide there. I think that's really useful, especially if you feel very passionate about helping a specific group of people or you have a skill set that delivers a very specific outcome. So if I've trained for years and years as like a respirologist and breathing mechanics are my life and that's what I want to do and I want to help people who are new runners embrace running and I want to use my skill set as a respirologist to help them hone their breathing so they can improve their running economy better and smash their 5K, great. That is uh, that is my elevator pitch, and that may appeal to a very specific subset of people very clearly. If you are newer and you're still developing your skill set, you're not super sure about who you want to help, casting a wider net is not inherently bad, specifically if it kind of leaves some very plain question marks, uh, which encourage people to kind of go, wait, what does that mean? Uh, it specifically works better to have kind of that general approach when you're meeting people for the first time in a physical social setting. Reason why is if you have like a really general kind of approach and you're putting that in your social media and your social media is kind of just like finding its feet, it's like that's great, but people aren't typically going to DM you and be like, hey, what the hell does this mean? Like, are you capable of helping me or not? They're just not going to jump over that barrier. But at a dinner party, if you tell people something that's like a little bit vague and a little bit cheeky, you will likely get the question back of, hey, what does that mean? Who do you help? Like, what does that look like day to day? And you'll facilitate more conversation like that. And then you can start to get into a little bit more detail. It offers kind of a more interactive way of communicating that as opposed to, do I immediately see myself in that? And then you can get into more specifics about, hey, this is what I do, this is how I got here, this is what my story is like. And you can actually have a real human conversation, which is also what we want to facilitate with elevator pitch, or at least what we lead into. We're assuming this is a very long elevator ride. But think of the difference of how you would apply that in kind of your social media online presence versus in a conversation. So if you're someone who's like, I don't want to be on social media all the time, I actually go out into the community and speak with people, you will refine that so that it has more of that appeal towards a live encounter versus how does this read online? And they don't have to be the exact same thing. Cool. I also mentioned that at the like 10-year mark of my career, mine is still ever evolving. It changes all the time. Uh, feel free to kind of like play around with yours, take some different elements in, pop some things out, kind of like what we do when we do our marketing, where we have A/B testing. We're going to try one strategy here, one strategy over there, and just kind of see what resonates with people a little bit more. And the other thing you can also do is kind of just ask your question of what resonates more with me, what feels more true to my identity and my values as a coach. So no bad elevator pitches here. Everything looks like it follows the formula quite well. Uh, and then you can continue to refine as you add more skills or as you change the population or you broaden the population that you work with or you get really niche. So we'll see how it goes. But I'm glad to see that people have something that they can roll off the cuff. Uh, Kim, I'm coming back to you. You asked kind of elevator pitch related question. Does that give you kind of a little bit more of what you're looking for?
It does. I just have a follow-up question to it. Um,
Please.
so my focus would also be on women. I saw a couple of that in the chat. My question is, if you happen to get like if like males reach out for coaching, do you turn them away, or do you kind of like get curious and ask them, or just be transparent on the services you provide and then maybe refer them, or do people typically take them on? I was just kind of curious because it sounds like, I don't know, like mean to send somebody away, but I don't know. I'm just curious.
Uh, I will leave that to the female coaches in the room. What do you do in this situation?
Well, I haven't had that scenario yet. As I said, I'm just sort of, I've only had like a client maybe, but I think in terms of what I know, like niching down or like having a market is really not about excluding anyone. It's really just more about trying to just not appeal to, it's like when you try to get everyone, you actually get no one. So I think it's more about just like trying to for yourself and others, really just try to pick people that you think would work. I mean, I know that if a man came to me, I would not turn him down because I think ultimately my goal is to help anyone. But I feel like I feel like because I am a woman, and feel like I can speak to to the people that I want to serve, that's who I'm choosing. But I don't think, I don't think it's meant to exclude people. It's just meant to kind of allow people who see it to say, oh, that's me. But if there's a male in there that also says, oh, that's me, you know, I'm just not a woman, like to me, that seems, I would definitely help them. I wouldn't exclude anyone. That's just me. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's useful. Anyone else have a similar feedback where uh, it could be like specifically along the lines of gender? It could just be, hey, you're outside of my chosen group. How do you handle those conversations?
I don't really have trouble with people coming from outside my group or my expertise. But what I do have is people who aren't serious about getting to work. And um, they want the quick fix. How am I going to lose 10 pounds by this date? Or how am I going to, I don't want to work out. How do I gain muscle and lose fat? Which is kind of silly approaches. And I don't know how to really address that sometimes because I'm just like, well, um, these are the goals and these are the aligned steps to get to the goal. I don't know another way. I don't know. I don't know.
That's fair. I'll toss over to Anastasia.
Yeah, I agree with Anna. I mostly work with women, but if man comes to me wanting to work with me, I'm not rejecting people, but what I do is I'm trying to get to know them better and send them this initial questionnaire form or whatever else's form, and then I try to study the information and really see how can I help this person, because sometimes I really understand that it's only my, I don't know, estimations or limitations that this person is not my client. But when I really started to study questionnaire, it appears that, oh wow, we usually have a lot of things in common. For example, I don't know, willingness to work, discipline, readiness to work. And I am surprising myself, like how can I consider a client only by the gender, but actually the person is really so aligned with me and with my values. And usually when, I mean, sometimes I feel that I can really be mistaken, that from the first time I really feel like, okay, this is my perfect client, but in a week it just, he or she just disappear, and then I'm like, okay, maybe I was wrong. And it can be the opposite. And I've noticed that it doesn't really relate it to gender anyhow. It's more related to who am I as a person, and what are my values, and if they are resonates with the clients wants. So I have never refused anyone. I always try to get to know them better first, and then offer different kind of formats. So yeah.
Thank you, Anastasia. Chantal, I'll give you the last word on this one.
So I was a massage therapist for a long time. So in the massage therapy field, there are a lot of people that will only work with this type of massage therapist or only work with that type of massage therapist. And so I see that sometimes, like, especially new women coaches are afraid to work with males, because of the stigma of, I mean, there's a stigma there. I'm not going to cover it up by right? Guys want to work out with you so they can hit on you. Guys want to work out with you. Like, this is a thing I've run into with other female therapists or other female trainers that I've met. They don't want to work with men because of that. And so one of the things that we do in massage that kept, like, I didn't have as many problems as other therapists I knew, because my stance was, if this happens, we will be done working together.
That is fair, yeah. So kind of creating, like, here are my boundaries. If you can work within them, great. If you cannot work within them, then this coaching relationship is not going to work. So laying those out quite clearly, I think, is very useful. As other people have said, both in the chat and shared in their experience here, very similar. Like, I cast, I think, a quite wide net as a coach. There's not a specific population that I'm looking to work with, although there are typically specific populations I enjoy working with a little bit more, and some that I enjoy working with a little bit less. That being said, if someone comes from one of those populations where it's like, I typically don't do a lot of work with you, I don't really work on this type of project that much, but I think it's useful for me as a coach to continue to kind of try and learn more about that. I see it as potentially a learning opportunity. I do ask a few questions, much like everyone said here, kind of understanding their value system a little bit more. One of the questions that I have found to ask, or I have found to be very useful in determining earlier than later if this person is a good fit, is often kind of like, where did you find me? So people find me in kind of like different areas. Like, were you referred to me by someone? If so, who is the person? Is this someone who has referred me a lot of great clients over the years, and they really know what my work is about? If so, then that's a point in your favor. Are they someone who has I have kind of like a so-so relationship with, and they've sent me some duds in the past? That might be a strike against you. What is the thing that you want to work on? Is this something that I'm super excited to help you with from a skill set? Do my skills align with the goal that you have here? If so, then yeah, that's a point for you. If not, then I might try and refer you to someone who I believe might be a better fit there. Uh, as you gain more experience, you'll kind of see patterns of who is for you and who is maybe not a great fit for you. That being said, you're never going to be 100% confident, as kind of Anastasia mentioned. Uh, there are some people you're like, yes, perfect fit. This person's going to be great. And then very shortly you find out, oh, after a week or two, they're just gone in the ether. It's going to happen occasionally. There's no surefire system to avoid that. Get curious before you kind of use your more basic screening system. So it's like immediately they don't fit that criteria. Especially as an earlier coach, I'd say get curious. You may learn something from this engagement that influences your future development as a coach. You might find that it's like, I actually never really considered working with this population, but now that I've learned more from this experience, I'm more open to it. It's helped me develop my coaching skill set, broaden my ability to help others. So there's a lot of value there. But also, as Chantel mentioned there, have your boundaries in place and set them out clearly for your client, which you should be doing with all your client engagements. And let them know, hey, here are the things that I value as a coach. These are the things I need to see. We'll continue to work together as long as you would like, as long as those are being met. And if those are not being met, or you are not interested in working in coaching anymore, then we shake hands and move away. So hopefully that gives you some ideas there, Kim, on how to work on, or how to potentially consider working with people who don't fit within current parameters. But I don't know if you're still here, actually. Oh, I think she may have left.
Here. I'm here.
Oh, no, Kim is here. I wanted to get to Anastasia's question, but I think she jumped off. So I guess we will not go to that question for today. Maybe it'll come back in a future call. Kim, we'll talk more about elevator pitches and stuff, and you'll have an opportunity to share them with your cohort next week. In regards to kind of current time that we have, are there any specific questions that folks have here, or any client scenarios that they want to run through before I go into some of the stuff that we had queued up for today?
I did have something I wanted to put out there if we have a couple minutes.
By all means.
It's more so not a specific question, maybe just like I feel like I need this community to like kind of to de-stress me. So I mean, I'm a newer-ish coach. I've been doing it for like 8 months. And so I have my first in-person like seminar that I'm going to do next month. So I know somebody who owns
Congrats.
a local, thank you, who owns a local fitness studio in town. And so I worked with her, and she's going to have me come in to do like a free coaching session for whoever, you know, comes. So I feel like I've got my like outline put together. I feel like I'm kind of like just missing like, I feel like I'm just missing a little something, but I'm also like very excited, but very nervous. And I feel like I just need to like talk about it out loud with like other people who can maybe understand, or I don't know, give me a little pep talk.
Do you want to share your outline?
Yeah, so I mean, the kind of concept is instead of thinking about things as all or nothing, going with the good, better, best concept. So how that can apply to pretty much all things, kind of, you know, fitness, nutrition, whole body. So I was going to kind of talk about myself and like my background, talk about like the all or nothing concept versus that, and have like a little visual, and then go through like different scenarios, like, okay, you know, if everybody kind of thinks about like for nutrition, what's something you want to work on, and like, okay, well, what would be good, what would be better, what would be best, and then kind of talk about like what I do as a nutrition coach and the programs that I have to offer.
I like that. That's a fantastic framework. What I specifically like about it is that you didn't get too like niche down on a topic. You're sharing a framework is what's happening. And sharing a framework that has broad application means that you cast a wider net for folks. So they can decide, how do I want to apply this in my life? Do I want to apply this to my movement? Do I want to apply this to my nutrition? Do I want to apply this to another area of life where there's outcomes that exist on a spectrum, or choices that exist on a spectrum? So that's really great that you're using this. I also like that it sounds like you're kind of gearing towards having some sort of interactive conversation with folks, as opposed to making this a lecture, which in my experience also typically goes over better. Like a lot of times we go like lecture, and then I'll save some Q&A time for the very end. But by the time you get to the very end, people are like,
Yeah.
and they're just so kind of tuned out that if they came with specific questions, or if they came with something that they wanted out of the session and it hasn't been provided early, you may lose them. So being able to create that interactive environment, I think, is incredibly useful. It also gets you to facilitate conversation and communication within the community, but also from potential clients to you as well. And you can share some of what it feels like to get active coaching from you.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. That sounds good.
One of the things I would say is like kind of uh, we'll call it KPI or performance indicator for you to take away here is asking the question, what kind of feeling do I want them to take away from this? And then what kind of actions do I want them to take away from this? So
Okay.
not only like am I sharing a framework here, here's what it would look like if you were to implement this today. And then what does that feel like? Or what could that potentially feel like? So from this conversation, uh, including what does it feel like when you're using the framework in your life? So if I were in your shoes and we're getting to the end of the conversation, they're sharing what the good, better, best framework looks like for them. Just sharing kind of like a moment of positivity. That's like, yes, you nailed that thing. That is exactly the concept that we're trying to use here. Uh, and then maybe after that conversation or after the session's done, you go up to them and be like, thank you for your participation. Like that was really great. If you have any more questions or if you're having trouble kind of implementing it, here's my card. I would like to work with you.
Okay. Yeah, those are two good questions for me to think about.
Mhm.
Okay, that's helpful.
Yeah, people who, I mean, as part of my coaching, like I'm very strong on sharing frameworks as opposed to like just do these things. How does this framework apply? It may apply to the conversation we're having here, but typically a strong framework can be applied across many different domains. So
Mhm.
if there are people who resonate with the stuff that you're sharing here, then they may be people who are also open to your coaching. Like they already grasp the concept. They may just need a little bit more support. And that's where you come in and after say, hey, like you did a great job there. You applied the thing. That's essentially what coaching feels like with me all the time. If you need that support or if you feel like you might benefit from it, let's continue this conversation.
Yes. Okay, that's good. Thank you.
Yeah, good luck. When are you delivering this?
April 9th, so just under a month.
Cool. I hope to get some updates on how it went in a couple days.
Yes. Well, and then the other thing which I'm like, what if nobody shows up? But I'm trying to to not worry about
If
that. Like
if one person shows up and they are receptive to the concept, it'll be worth your time. Like
yes.
I've done essentially what you're doing, and I did it at an old folks home. I did the same presentation twice at two different like senior care community centers. The first one I had 30 or 40 people there, ages probably if I had to guess, I think the average age in the room was 85. At least 50% of the people fell asleep during my conversation with them. So it's like numbers wise, I crushed it. Follow-up questions, I maybe got like three or five. I got paid $150 for it. Amazing. The second one, I had two ladies show up and I ended up pretty much pitching my initial concept and just having a conversation with them. And it was way better. And one of them, like we emailed back and forth for a while. Didn't end up coaching that person, but I feel much better about that second presentation because it
Mhm.
felt like just coaching. And I felt very comfortable with that. And it felt like they actually got value. They asked really good questions. I gave them some resources, and the other one, or one of the two, 50% of my audience, continued that conversation. And it seemed like they probably didn't need a lot of coaching. Like they were doing most of the things they need to. They just had some genuine curiosity, and I was happy to feed that.
Yeah. All right. Thank
Mm.
you. That helps.
Yeah. Look forward to getting your update. Dana.
Yeah, just to piggyback off of what you were saying, and sorry, my camera's off. I have a little bit of a headache, but I'm curious if you can just speak more about like this idea of like a framework rather than like a lecture, and if that applies to other things as well, like in terms of your coaching or in terms of like sharing on social media, like I don't know, I just something about that piqued my interest of like, yeah, talking about a framework versus lecturing.
Yeah, so I mean, if you've gone through the PN Level 1 certification, you've probably seen our conversations regarding like goal to skill to practice to action. So a framework kind of sits around that skill area. So skills can be applied amongst various different domains and similar to frameworks. So a framework that Elizabeth is sharing there is regarding kind of like uh, using a spectrum-based approach, or as she put it, like good, better, best. Uh, in PN, we often use the traffic light system. So it's like green light, yellow light, red light. That is a framework that you can apply to decision making regarding food. That's where we normally have that conversation. But that framework can also be applied to movement. It can be, hey, going for a walk. It could be going for a jog. It can be doing hill sprints. There are different levels of intensity that this applies to, but the framework is generally the same. And the domain that it exists in is still all movement related. It's just you decide how you want to apply it.
Right. So like would a framework be something like, kind of add, don't subtract? Like think about what you're adding,
Mm-hmm.
to,
Exactly.
instead of what you're taking away. And like, but like could like your whole kind of business and like theme be based just around like a framework? I mean, and then you would
Yeah,
other
you can use a
ones?
single framework. Like there's
Yeah,
a few that I use for mine. It's like uh, if you think of kind of like some of our eating based practices,
right.
we think of adding in more beneficial things as opposed to
Hmm.
focusing on taking away things.
Right.
Uh, a framework that I often share with clients is the value of uh, seeing value in smaller units. So if you think about this again, I apply this primarily to movement, but I can apply it to sleep and recovery as well, where uh, a unit of time for exercise, like everyone thinks that exercise needs to be 60 minutes, it needs to be structured, it needs to happen in certain locations.
Right.
If we kind of deconstruct that idea a little bit, it's like the value in less here looks like I did a 5 minute walk up and down my hallway. That's how I
Hmm.
apply my movement principle today. Or I went for a bike ride to go grab my groceries as opposed to taking the car. That is a framework that we're using here where we're shrinking the unit of a thing to make it more accessible. And we
Mm-hmm.
use it across many different domains. And maybe my client and I talk about it in the domain of movement and exercise. But then they were like, oh, yeah, you know what? I was stressing about falling asleep on time and getting more sleep. And I decided I don't need to get a full hour. I just went to bed 15 minutes earlier. They took that same framework that we talked about in movement, applied it to a different domain, and that's how they were able to achieve success there.
It's like the 5 minute action idea.
Exactly. That is
Yeah,
a framework that you can utilize across many different domains.
right. Okay, cool. That's helpful and interesting.
Yep. Anna, I'll give you the last word and then we'll sign off for today.
Oh, it's that time. Thanks. Such great questions today. Really awesome input. I learned a lot. I wanted to share something that my first mentor taught me, and it was about considering, so this is kind of a framework approach, is considering any of the problems that I had in my life at the time. He said, these are all the same problem, and you're diving deep into the minutia of every problem. And what would really be helpful for you is, rather than getting bogged down by all these details, is to shift the dynamic. And that is something I've carried with me for a long time. It served me very well. I try not to look at, was I betrayed, or was I misunderstood, or whatever the situation was, and really get to the heart of what's the root, what is at the root of that, so that I can create change that improves my life.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that, Anna.
Mm.
Yeah, one thing I will say here is that often when we're sharing a framework, sharing relevant context that makes sense to the audience that we're talking to or the client that we're talking to. So if we share a specific framework or a specific skill, from there, it's like, how do we apply it in this context so that it becomes more real and easy to grasp for the person? And then from there, we can generalize it to other areas, but typically to make it relevant for the person, we're sharing it in the context of what is the current problem or conversation that we're discussing. Uh, cool. We'll leave it here for today. Uh, thank you, folks. Again, another amazing reminder that having a plan is great. throwing away the plan tends to be better. So maybe we'll get to the conversations or case studies I had lined up for next time. Maybe we won't. Who knows? I'll talk to you. I think I'm back next week. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.